Welcome to July 13th, turn 4. 1 month into the war is now concluded, and I'm starting to see a little bit of differences between his strategy and my previous opponents. In a similar vein, he's avoiding mountain hexes and city hexes and going for the path of least resistance. But he's taking it to a much higher level. He's avoiding combat at almost all cost. So let's do our weekly look around the map, see what's changed. Starting in the south, his offensive hit between the southwestern front and the southern front in the open, clear terrain where like I said in the last episode, I was pretty weak. What I did not expect was how strong he was. So he had enough men to push through that, and then he turned northward towards Kiev. This does represent a little bit of a dangerous possible envelopment that we'll have to deal with when the time comes for me to do my ground movement. The rest of his army in the area just assaults my front line. It cuts off a couple infantry divisions. South towards Odessa is fairly similar. The entire Romanian and Hungarian forces just move up the 5 hexes and present themselves. They cross the river towards the north where his initial eastern offensive began. The forests around the city of Gomel remain quiet. German forces sit on the western side of the river while Russians on the east. I have a feeling in the next week or two that will not remain the case. This will also hold true for the city of Smolensk. The German goal for the city is turn 4. His strategy clearly seems to be more methodical. The northern front takes a turn in a direction that I did not expect. The city of Peskov with a target goal of turn 3, he completely ignores, beelining for the Lake of Ilmen. How he's going to get supplies up there, I'm not 100% sure, but so far that hasn't seemed to matter. Thus, as my side of the turn begins, this is what I am facing. I'll admit at first glance it looked pretty precarious, but I do have to remind myself it's a long war, and I will get stronger as the months progress. Where I am not strong is in the air. So for another week, my missions remain to be ground support in focus with 2 recon missions to try to figure out what he has up around the Peskov area. And like I said earlier, the answer is a lot more than I thought he would. So I figured I'd show a little bit of the thought process with how I move my troops. So I chose the Kiev region because of his potential enveloping maneuver. It might make it more interesting than just a little bit of shifting on front lines. But on the left side here, he's trying to cut, obviously, 5-7 divisions off. So I was surprised that I was able to move them all out and keeping them relatively safe for at least another week. I thought about hitting some of his units to try to put combat delays on them, which is something I've used a lot more this turn than I have any time previously. But I instead opt for a controlled retreat, hoping to allow myself to have a combat next week. I made that decision here based on the terrain, and still do not know what he has coming through the Perpiat swamps or whatever. If there's a left hook, I'll call it, coming that way, then just like in history, this entire front is doomed. But for now, I'm hoping that most of those troops are heading towards Gomel, and he prioritizes taking that city before trying to do that maneuver. So we'll see that next turn. As to the maneuver that he has pulled off this turn, I obviously have to provide some form of blocking force, being that he's 6 hexes from the city of Kiev itself. But I really do need to learn a little bit more of the differences between movement, combat zones, and the like, because I was hopeful I could get those infantry right into those 2 hexes in between his SS divisions and the motorized. But I guess the river and supplies or his strength or whatnot, I'm not able to move in that manner at all. Thankfully, I had these 6 rifle divisions moving westward. So I moved them up, reassigned them into the southern or southwestern fronts, depending on which division we're talking about. But it does allow me to get some sort of pressure, a few small incursions, providing those combat delays, should allow me to not have him stretch out 10 hexes when I get my turn back. With his movement in the Smolensk area, it does allow me to actually do some combat of my own. So I'm not able to follow it up to where I fully isolate the Panzer segments. But I'm able to dish out a little bit of damage, a lot of these combat delays that I'm hoping become impactful. But I did get him to retreat in 2 different hexes, which is something new, especially this early in my campaigns. I am very curious to get my turn back to see how this worked. Hopefully he's only able to move 3 hexes forward. If he continues to attack where I'm the weakest, then that will be the dead center of the land bridge. That's why I'm really leaning on these combat delays, hoping that with the few units that I'm able to get into position, does their job of preventing that. I also begin moving up some of the rifle divisions that were coming westward from the Urel region. Originally, I was going to use them to try to prevent sweeping maneuvers similar to what he did near Kiev, but I feel like now I have to kind of apply them more towards the center. So we'll see. The situation in Peskov is very interesting to me. So I do begin with obviously my new troops need some supplies. Although I'm starting to second guess whether or not I should have moved them down 1 hex and done it at the airfield. So I think I have to learn to start doing that in the future. But I don't understand how he's going to be able to get supplies up to here. Obviously, he might not even have to for right now because he hasn't faced that much combat, which is something I guess I'm going to have to try and change. But we do at least provide a layer of defense. I'm going to leave those militia in the back, just kind of continuing to do what they can in case things go really south. Other than that, I just have several divisions to move up from the rear to try to bring to bear. Not sure how much they'll play a role next turn, being that they have to get off the trains and then move into some form of combat, but we'll let time tell on that one. But the state of affairs from the bird's eye perspective is a lot better than I thought it was going to be when I first looked at it. So now it's just a matter of waiting for my turn to return to me, and we'll see how the war continues to go.